Let's talk about system and output logs. These are really important because when bad things are happening, it usually has a record of them happening. And understanding what's in those logs is really important. You will have to do a log dive sooner or later if you're administering a Cassandra or DataStax enterprise system. And so understanding where they are and what they are is super important. For those in-depth problems, and that means a long time, maybe this has been happening over a week or maybe several hours, and you can't just look at one specific stat and say that's the problem. You need to look at the long tail of this problem. There's no other way you can do this. And there are a few places to look at. The big one is the system log in Cassandra, because that has basically everything that's happened on that node. And you could ramp up the logging level to really give you some in-depth information. The other one is the Java collection log, and that's something that we'll cover in a different video. So the main log, as I said, is the system.log. That system.log is usually stored in the log directory in your var directory, but if it's not there, you could specify where that should go. Generally, that's where the default is. And in that directory, you can also find a debug log. Now that's if you're running full debug information, but if you're not running debug, you won't find it there. The debug log is something you actually have to turn on, and it is full of information. I would use that very sparingly, because when you turn it on, you get everything. Every command, everything that was done on that node will get dumped into that file. It can get pretty big fast. So if you don't need that kind of level of information, keep it off. You can change all of the locations and the logging level in the jvm.options file. In there, you get the option of putting in a different location, upping the log level, enabling the debug log, but generally the defaults are pretty good. It logs at a good level where you can get some information that's useful in case you have a bad situation. If you have to change them, just be careful, because when you do change your logging level, it could affect you later on down the road. Little known fun fact, there are 7 levels of logging. I didn't know that, but that's what there are. Most of these you'll never use. Usually it's info, error, or debug. Warn, maybe, but those are the main ones. Warn and error are the ones you pay attention to. Info, those are interesting. But when you start seeing any error in your log, you really should pay attention. If you're using something that's watching logs, such as Splunk, you should be looking for that word. That keyword is important. When we enable logging, I think the default idea is, well, more is better. Not really, because everything that happens on that node is going to have to get written to disk. That's your data. Are you also going to write a log file as well? You're basically doubling down on everything that happens on that node. This is not free. Logging is not free. It has to do something to your system. And in the case of a lot of logging with a really busy system, this is where you run into some trouble. Yeah, I could use some information, but is it actually affecting my node so it's making it bad? That's a bad situation to be in, because now the thing that I want to tell me is bad is creating the bad. You get my point. Don't get too crazy with logging. Use as much as you need. So the running Cassandra node and DataStax Enterprise uses the logback.xml file. And inside that, you'll see a lot of information about what to log. You can get into some really interesting things like Java classes to log and what specific log level you want to use. And even more importantly, the output path for that and where you want it. So all of that's in there. The defaults should be fine. If you're going to change it, know what you're changing and why you're changing it. And when you change it and you're finished, change it back. This is not something you just leave alone. So if you ever change the logging configuration, then you have to restart the node. This is a part of the running Java process. It is very basic. So change the settings, restart the node. So this is a look inside of the logback.xml file. And what you'll see here is a few things that are important, like the appender, the file appender. This is where you change the name of the file or where it's going, and any kind of roll-up that needs to be done. So in system logging, there's a real good concept about once the log gets to a certain size, zip it, archive it away, and maintain just a few of these. This is what keeps your disk from filling up from logging. Don't mess with this unless you know what you're doing, but this is how you change it. There's also the level of logging. What level do you need? Debug and trace? Look out for that, because that is the maximum amount of level you're going to get. You are going to get tons and tons of information. This is one of those things, if you change it, make sure and change it back. Do not leave it like this. Now in Cassandra land, this is really a nice feature, is that you can use the nodetool command to set the logging level. So if you need to do some really quick checks, you can set logging level to say debug for just a few minutes. Great. This keeps you from falling over and trying to set it in the configuration file and forgetting about the configuration. Once you do a set logging level, it will not stay if you restart the node. That's important. But you have to set it back if you want to change it. Really helpful whenever you're doing some point-in-time performance analysis. The get logging levels gives you some indication of what's happening. So if you're not sure if somebody got there before you, or you're not sure what logging level your system is sitting at, just use the nodetool get logging levels. You'll see exactly what's being logged at what level. Now again, logging in a Java system is done by class, so you'll see the different classes at what level they're being logged at. Hopefully this has been a good overview of logging in a Cassandra and DataStax enterprise system. This is really effective if you're using it for any kind of troubleshooting.